New product development. This is a multidisciplinary course. It covers areas like strategy, design, marketing and operations. During this course, we will cover the product development process from idea to launch. We will learn how to make new product process efficient and effective. We will focus on both business and social value creation through new products and services. Such courses are offered in business schools jointly with design and engineering schools. So you can see that it involves multiple disciplines to create a new product. What we will see here is a product which we will take you through in terms of understanding how the product development process is done, as well as how it is communicated to new customers. So here you see what is called a bottle loft. It's a product which is at the top of this picture. You can see that there is a plastic strip with 3 magnets which are attached to the plastic strip. This plastic strip is put with an adhesive on the roof of the refrigerator, and you can see bottles are attached to it. The idea of this product is that by using the adhesive and the magnets which are stuck to the roof of the refrigerator inside, it is possible to use the space which is below the bottles for other products. So this particular company which launched this product is called Strong Like Bull Magnets, and they have created a Kickstarter video which emphasizes the value of the space saving and the use of the space under the bottles. However, the video which they have used overemphasizes on the high strength of the flat magnets that are used by the company. In fact, it's the company's name which is Strong Like Bull Magnets, which is emphasized here, and the video ignored the high strength of the special low temperature adhesive made by 3M, which was also used by them. What is the implication of this? Users are equally or more concerned about the strong adhesive holding 3 bottles on one strip as they are of the magnet holding 1 bottle. Very high bond 3M adhesive is effective, and it is a very appropriate product which is used out here, but not as well emphasized, as this company makes the strong magnets but not the 3M adhesive. They had to make a choice on what to cover in a 1-minute video, and they emphasized their own magnets over the equally good 3M adhesive that they had used. But the adhesive is as important as the magnet from the user's point of view, and therefore it being ignored in the video causes some dissonance. A user-centric view rather than a product-centric view can resolve some of these common user dissonances. What does this imply? It shows that the companies have to be more product-centric during the product development process, but then they have to be more user-centric in their marketing pitch to potential users. This course covers how companies can identify some significant existing or latent user needs. We will cover how to use this understanding to develop new products or services to meet those needs. We will cover innovation and technology-led new products. We will also cover adapting existing products to new users. We will also cover the adaptation of business models to new contexts. We will use both the product-centric as well as the user-centric viewpoints. Product development involves making many critical trade-offs in features to match the latent customer requirements and the competitive offers. Most product characteristics and key features are decided at the early product development stages. These may prefix their market scope. Changing such product characteristics later to meet new demands or correct any mistakes is often expensive, sometimes unviable, or sometimes just not feasible. Decisions taken at the early stages can have major strategic and operational impact on the success of new products when launched. Bad decisions at early stages can restrict the range of customers that may find the new product suitable. The role of product developers is therefore critical in meeting two major targets. One is the product is both suitable and viable to users, and 2, the time to reach the market is as less as possible. We look at both of these. First, look at the cost of late design changes. As you can see in this diagram, if a design change is made at the design stage, let's say it costs $10 to make that change, the same design change when made at the process design stage will cost $100, 10 times more, and the same design change made at the production stage will cost 1,000, maybe 100 times more, and the change remains the same. So, the effort involved is much higher at a later design stage and the cost involved is much higher, but the change that is being made is just the same if it was made earlier. So, therefore, understanding customer requirements and building a correct design right at the early stage is actually very critical in reducing the time it takes to reach the product into the market, as well as to reduce the cost of making the product. Look at the time that it takes to develop a new product. A lot of work has happened in this industry, in this context, in this field to reduce the time taken to develop new products. So, in the most of the major improvements happened between the 80s and the 90s. As you can see in this chart, Honda used to take 5 years to develop a new car in the 80s, and they were able to reduce the time to 3 years in the 1990s, and it's much lower currently. AT&T took 2 years to develop a telephone exchange, and it went down to 1 year in the 1990s. Look at Hewlett Packard. They used to take 4.5 years to make a new printer in the early stages. Now they make printers in 2.2 months, a much faster process. Obviously, the printers are not radically different from one to the other, but there are new products being launched by Hewlett Packard almost on a monthly basis because of this faster time to market. So, what does this mean for companies? If you have a new technology and you are fast to build that product and bring it into the market, the new technology is incorporated into the latest product at a much faster pace than the other companies, and that gives you an advantage. We will now look at business models for new products. What is a business model? It's essentially a business model tells a good story about who are the customers, what do they value, and how does the company make money? How do we deliver the value at a reasonable cost? A good business model requires articulation of how you will make the product or service, how you will deliver the product or service, and innovation can focus on either or both these areas. New resources may of course be required on both these areas. New products typically require new business models. It may not be essential, but it is worth reflecting whether the new product that you are about to launch requires a new business model or not. New products can actually fail due to failed business models or inappropriate business models. So, what is a good business model and why does a new or proposed business model fail when it is inappropriate? So, a new business model may fail when it cannot pass any of these two tests. The first is the narrative test. The story about who are the customers, what they value, and why they will buy your product does not make sense. The second is the numbers test. The projected profits do not add up to make money. We are unable to deliver value to customers at a reasonable cost. If either one of these tests fail, business model will not be suitable for their product. When do existing business models fail? Even an existing business model may fail because the assumptions under which the business model was built may no longer hold. So, business models are built on very specific assumptions about customer behavior. If these assumptions become faulty, then the projected returns may not materialize. Business models may have very specific limits, for example, willingness to pay within which they work. If these limits get stretched too far, then the projected returns may not materialize. If the business model is very robust to the variations in customer behavior and the limits can be stretched to some extent, then the business may survive with corrective action. However, if the business model is very sensitive to variations in customer behavior or the limits cannot be stretched, then even prompt corrective action may not save the business. So, how do you assess the business model required for a new product? We asked basically two sets of questions. The first is what is known as the customer set of questions. So it starts with who are the customers and who are not your customers. What do these customers value in your business? What specifically will you offer to your customers? What will you not offer even if asked for? Both are important questions, what you will offer and what you will not offer. How much will your customers pay? How much will your customers be willing to pay? Both are again important questions. What they are currently paying may be less than what they are willing to pay. Finally, how will your customers behave in terms of opting out or dropping out of the product or service? The second set of questions is what are known as cost questions. What will you offer? What activities will you perform will drive the cost of that offer and the activities. Is there any high upfront investment required for this business? If so, then you are taking a risk because you have to make that investment upfront before launching the business. Or is there a float in this business? Do you get an advance from customers to run the business? Or do you need a high working capital? So these will determine the profitability of that business. How much will it cost to deliver the value promised? Does the cost depend on scale? Sometimes it is believed that if the scale goes up, the cost will come down. It is not necessary that when the scale goes up, the cost actually comes down. Finally, will the cost to deliver the value vary for different types of customers, and will it grow over time? Again, an important question, because when you add new types of customers, you might face additional costs which are not part of your initial pricing for that new product. Let's look at an example of a business model. Let's look at the Uber taxi service business model. How is Uber better than call taxi service? Essentially, Uber connects customers with drivers who are very nearby and who can reach them fast. Uber basically links customers to drivers faster. This enables customers to get early confirmation about they have asked for. Uber customers thus have to wait the least to get a pickup compared to other call taxi services. And also the Uber drivers thus have to drive the least empty to reach their next customer. So what is called the dry run is the least for Uber drivers because they are able to connect to new customers or the next customer faster and reach them faster. How does Uber create value through this business model? Essentially, Uber's business model increases efficiency and lowers costs for their drivers, thus increasing their income while providing for fast availability of cars, which is very valuable to their users. So therefore, does Uber create equity among all its stakeholders? There are multiple stakeholders involved here. You have the driver, you have Uber as a company, you have the customer. All three are important stakeholders, and a business model will work only if there is equity among all the stakeholders. So what Uber does is that it raises prices during taxi shortages to get more drivers. This increases the car availability and builds the market supply, while others do not get any cars at all during such a shortage. So while the customer may face a higher price during a shortage, it at least ensures that the customer gets a ride, whereas the other suppliers who are not overcharging may simply not be available when there is a shortage. So overall, even though it seems like Uber is overcharging in a shortage situation, it is actually giving a better service to its customers by bringing in more drivers who are willing to drive at a higher price but were not willing to drive at the lower price. So what is a business model and how does it differ from a business strategy? Essentially, a business model depicts specifically how a firm creates value for its target customers. So therefore, the business model is an opportunity-centric activity. We are creating value by exploiting the user context to see how we can create value. On the other hand, the business strategy depicts how the firm captures the value that it has actually created. So business strategy is competition-centric. It is about how do we gain advantage over rival offers. So in this case which we just saw, Uber is creating value through the system that it has built for itself, but that's the business model which is creating value. But to capture the value, they have to find a price point and an ability to deal with other competitors who are offering similar or same type of service. So essentially, the value created by good business models may not be captured if the business strategy fails to get the customer to buy from you rather from your competitor. In this module, we look at how do you manage the new product development process. The whole process starts with building what is called the mission statement for a product. Here on the screen you will see a mission statement for a kids calculator. It gives several aspects about the kids calculator that the company wants to develop. First is the product description, which is that it will be a small handheld electronic calculator meant for children. What are the key business goals here? Mentioned are product will be introduced in the fourth quarter of 2017. It will give a 50% gross margin and a 10% share of the kids calculator market by 2019. So it is covering both the profitability side as well as the market share aspirations for this product. Then it lists down what is the primary market for this product. So the primary market that has been decided by the company is kids in the 6 to 8 age group. They also have a secondary market which would be kids who are younger or older. So the secondary market is kids in the 4 to 5 age group as well as kids in the 9 to 10 age group. The company of course will design the product for the 6 to 8 age group, but it is possible that the product designed for 6 to 8 age group will also be used by younger children or older children. Apart from this, you also have to list down what you will take for granted. For example, the assumptions which are listed here are that you will use only solar power operated calculator. The calculator will be sealed and waterproof. Both these are important considerations because you want the product to be suitable for children. You don't want products which would have small parts which may easily break out and may hurt the children. So who are the stakeholders for this product? First of course are the users, which are children in the target group, but then there are other stakeholders who are the buyers, they are parents as well as teachers. Then you have the retailers and the sales force which will have to retail this product. Then you have another stakeholder being the production and quality control. Then you have to look at packaging and the environmental standards required for packaging such a product. Then there is a question of servicing. In this case, you may not be able to easily service the product because it's a sealed product, but you can replace it. And what are the norms for replacing the product? And finally, what are the legal standards which are required to be met for kids related products? So all these have to be looked at when you are developing this type of a product. Once you have developed the mission statement for the product, the next issue is how do you manage the product development process? Essentially, we are trying to meet two targets. One is how do you reduce the time to the market while aligning the product to the users and market needs. Both these targets are important. We manage the product development process by looking at the portfolio of products that we are managing, which is titled as doing the right things or balancing the product portfolio. The second is how do you actually manage the project itself, that is doing things right, which would involve looking at the product development funnel as well as the stage gates in the product development funnel. Let's start with the portfolio itself, doing right things, which is the balanced portfolio of products. What you see on the screen here is a company's portfolio of products. The circles out here represent different products that the company is working on. The different colors indicate different types of products that their company is working on, maybe different lines of business that the company has. So you can see 3 different lines of business represented in this diagram. And what you see here is a spread of projects across the diagonal on the screen. So you have some projects which are actually very small innovations, maybe new branding of an existing product or pack size changing of an existing product, which is on the right hand lower corner. And on the other side on the top left hand corner, you have products which are big ticket projects which are looking at radical or breakthrough innovations. And in between you have derivative products and new platform products. Essentially what it means is that this company has a balanced portfolio of new products. It has some products where they are trying to milk their existing market, where they are trying to make some minor improvements in their existing product and working with that. And there are some products where they are trying to capture a new market by coming up with a complete breakthrough and doing something that nobody else in the industry has done. So the two dimensions on this chart are, one is what is the enabling technology which is being used. The technology may range from just a basic technology which is currently used to a completely new radical technology. And on the other dimension, you have what is the customer need which is being met. Is it the same need which is being met by the current product, or will it go all the way to meeting a completely new need which has not been met by current products so far? If a company has a lopsided portfolio, for example, if a company is working only on breakthrough products, that means that it may be undervaluing or under-emphasizing on the value of working with their current products and milking them better. On the other hand, if a company is not working on breakthrough products at all, it works only on the current products, then it may be shortchanging its future by not being in the market for new products when the competition takes over. What is the nature of portfolio decisions that you have to take? First and most important decision would be how and when should I add a new product. When we add a new product, there are several issues that come up. First is the brand itself. Do you want to use the same brand or do you want to use a different brand name? If your new product has the same quality, then it makes sense to use the same brand name. But if your new product has a very different quality, then it is much better if you go with a different brand name so that you don't devalue the brand name of your current product. Second is the market itself. Is it addressing the same customer? Even if you are addressing the same customer, is it the same use occasion which you are addressing? Customers may be more price sensitive on one use occasion and may be less price sensitive in another use occasion. For example, you would spend more when you go to a restaurant, but you would be reluctant to spend more when you are buying things for your household kitchen. And then there is the question of, is it the same value proposition? And if you are offering the same value proposition, then the price point would be okay. The third question is the pricing. Is it a premium product? If so, can you justify the premium to your customer? If not possible to justify your premium, can you lower the price? Next is cost. Is it a cost effective product? If it is a cost effective product, then you may be able to reduce the price when there is a competition coming in. Is the cost under control? If there are cost elements that can be dropped, can you drop them? Next is operations. Can you use the same resources for the new product as you have been using for your existing product? Next is distribution. Can you use the same distribution network that you are using for your current product? If so, you have some cost advantage because your existing distribution can take care of the new product also. What about accessories and service requirements? Are you addressing them adequately? Is the current retail design appropriate for the new product? Maybe your current retail design is appropriate for your existing product, but may not be appropriate for the new product. Is there product level competition? Are there alternatives for the product in the market? It may not be exactly the same as your current product, but maybe it serves the same purpose or a broad purpose and can become a reasonable competition for your product. Is there also competition at the component level? That is another question that needs to be asked. What are the components in the product? Are there, for example, in a printer, you have a cartridge, right? The cartridge is a component of the printer, but somebody can compete only on the cartridge and not compete on the printer. If so, then that component cannot be overcharged. So if you overcharge on the cartridge, somebody will come in and offer the same product at a lower price. Also, is there competition for service? If so, then such services cannot be overcharged. So what you see here is when you introduce a new product, you have to look at several dimensions and how they are related to your existing product. Now we look at doing things right. This is what you see here is what is known as the product development funnel. The depiction looks like a funnel. Essentially what it says is that there are multiple customer needs and there are multiple technological possibilities. And what is happening when you develop a new product is that you are combining customer needs with technological possibilities and you are developing what is known as a concept. So the first stage in the product development process is the development of a concept, and you might develop a number of different concepts to start with. Then what you do is you go through a concept selection. Now the selection may be based on what may be possible, what is worth doing. There may be assessments made of the different concepts, and some may be ruled out very easily, some may be ruled out after a careful examination, and then you come to a set of concepts which are likely to work. Now as you can see, from concept generation to concept selection, the number of concepts have already reduced, and that's how the funnel becomes narrower. Then you get to the next stage, which is the product design, and in the product design you are working further on the concept that you have selected to come up with the exact specifications of each component and so on. And then the next stage is the actual development stage, where you develop each component, you create a prototype and then you test it. And then as you go further, once your prototypes are tested and they work, you can launch the product in the market. So as you can see, over the whole process, the number of concepts that you start with get whittled down till you reach the product release. Now how do you manage this whole process? Maximum flexibility is of course at the beginning of the project. As the project evolves, commitments are made to specific concepts, product design and product architecture, and the funnel starts narrowing. Now what has been found is that if you start with a broad funnel, then you are better off. If you start with a narrow funnel, you start with only a few ideas, it is quite possible that few ideas that you start with are not adequate and eventually the product fails. But if you start with a broad funnel, you evaluate all possible ideas, then it is quite possible that a good idea will come out at the end of the funnel. You also need an organizational process to control this funnel process. So what you see here is that what is called the stage gates on the product development funnel. You have various gates which are created by the organization, which will be a stop and open situation at each gate. So what you see here is that the company started with 6 ideas at the idea generation stage, and only 5 ideas went through from gate 1 to gate 2. Okay, so you see that only the 5 ideas which seem to be actually worth following went to gate 2, and that's where the feasibility check happened. And out of that feasibility check, only 4 ideas went through to the next stage, where they looked at business capability. And out of those 4 ideas, actually 3 went into product launch preparation, and finally one of them was launched, but it's possible that the other 2 will get launched at a later stage. So what you see here is that the funnel has narrowed, but it had also been controlled by the company, where at each stage somebody in top management, somebody at senior level is cross-checking on what is being done, where is money being spent, and taking decisions on whether to launch a product or take it forward into prototype or not. So what happens at each of these stages? You have the idea generation stage, where the initial market choice is made and the product concept is discussed within the group. Then you have the feasibility check stage, where the concept is refined, it is established in terms of customer relevance, the technical and commercial issues are also cross-checked. Then the third is the business capability stage, where you check whether you have a proven technology, do you have a finalized mix or product mix, and then you look at whether there is a commercial viability for that product. And only products which meet all these requirements will go into the launch preparation stage, where the commercial production, commercial marketing and sales activities will start happening. So over this period, some products will go through, some products will not go through. So therefore, the management of these stage gates is very critical. What is required is that good products go through the process and products which are unlikely to succeed get stopped in the process, so that money is not wasted on those products. The first thing that you need to do is to ensure that communication of the process happens to all the employees. What is the stage gate process that the company is employing and how does it work needs to be communicated to everyone. Second is the transparency in the assessment process at all the gates. Top management has to be committed to the process and ensure that there is transparency in the assessment process. There should be periodic reviews against set and agreed standards. There should be good documentation of the entire process so that it can be reviewed and analyzed. For example, it is possible that you stopped a project which was allowed by some competitor. You may want to re-look at why did we stop the project that the competitor decided to launch and make a success of. Then you have cross-functional teams with project champions who will lead the project, and it is also made clear that not all projects would get fully funded. There is also a need for flexibility in the product development process, and flexibility is an important alternative to better market and technology research given high uncertainty. So if the market is very uncertain, you may want to make some late design changes, but late design changes may be very expensive. So if you can include some flexibility in the whole process, you may be able to make late design changes without incurring too much of cost. So flexibility entails both benefits and costs. You can do some efficient late design changes using a flexible technology. You can benefit from adapting the product line over time. But the counter side of it is that there are overheads and poorer products with flexibility approaches. So what we need to do is to view these economic trade-offs and choose the best, most flexible approach in each case. But if you use flexibility, then it gives you some significant benefits, especially when the market is very uncertain. So how can you increase development flexibility? You can do so by adopting flexible technologies that allow for fast and low cost design iterations. You can structure the design tasks in such a way that it allows for progressive commitment. You can also progressively lock down requirements and not lock down requirements in the beginning, and keep viable backup options and revisit the trade-offs involved in the process. You can also use what is called modular architecture, modular product structures. These reduce the coupling between the modules and isolate the volatility in the design to enable easy replacements. In this module, we look at how do you identify new product opportunities. New product opportunities can be identified in several different ways. The first is identify changes in the user lifestyles and demography. If there are significant changes in user lifestyles or there is a significant change in demography, that can create new product opportunities. We can also regularly study competitor products in detail to find out what have the competitors done in terms of adding new features or adding new functionality to their products, and we can see how to add those functionalities to our product also. The third is regularly gathering suggestions from existing users. It is possible that users may suggest something that may not be immediately implementable, but it is useful to keep track of those suggestions, and as new technology emerges, you can actually use those suggestions and implement them. Next is identifying frustrations with existing products. What are the frustrations that people are facing with the existing product can give rise to new product ideas. Maintaining high quality documentation of the ideas that are developed is important because it helps you relook at some ideas which may have occurred earlier but may not be occurring now. Identifying innovations of lead users of the product, we will discuss that in more detail later. tracking status of relevant emerging technologies is also an important source for new product ideas. Maybe an emerging technology can give rise to new functionality which can be added to your current products. And finally, identifying the blank spaces in the buyer utility map. What you see here is a depiction of what is called the buyer utility map. When you use the Carnot's framework, you can create what is called the product variety matrix, which you can see on the screen here. So on one side you have the one-dimensional attributes, and on the other side you have the attractive attributes. So on the one-dimensional side you have what is called a minimum satisfier, and then you have satisfier level 1 and 2 which are actually better than the minimum level. On the other axis you have no delighters, that means no additional features which are of delighter value which would be there in the minimum configuration, or you can have delighter 1 which is a premium and delighter 2 which is a premium. As you can see in this frame, you have 9 different combinations being created. The first, the minimum one is the minimum satisfier and no delighter, which becomes the must have configuration. This is the configuration that most users will find appropriate and will not be willing to go for anything less than this. But there may be some users who may prefer an upgrade on one satisfier. That may be an upgrade A or an upgrade B depending on what is the requirement of that user. The same user may also go for 1 or 2 delighters. For example, if you are looking at a laptop, the upgrade may be in terms of a faster chip or a higher capacity hard disk. On the other hand, the delighter may be in the form of a fingerprint reader or a camera which is mounted on the device. So delighters can also be different, and delighters may result in a premium being charged for adding the delighter. As you can see, based on this frame, you have 9 different combinations being created for a single product by using 2 different satisfiers and 2 different delighters. Obviously, you can add more layers to this, more columns and more rows, and create more configurations of your product. Now, what is the value of this creating that much of product variety? It allows the customer to actually seek out the configuration that is of value to them based on the budget that they may have. So, for example, 3 different configurations may fit the same budget. Let us say for a laptop the budget was 50,000. There may be 3 configurations which fit the 50,000 budget, and then the customer may decide which combination of delighters and satisfier levels would they be willing to go for and which one they would like to forego. And so you have more offerings at the same budget. It gives you a competitive advantage over another company which may not have those many configurations. So having more product variety can actually be beneficial to compete against companies which have fewer product configurations, and may attract customers who are looking for a specific configuration which only your company is actually providing. In this buyer utility map, you have 2 axes. The horizontal axis has the stages of customer experience, which starts with the purchase of the product, the delivery of the product, the usage of the product, supplements, maintenance and disposal. On the vertical axis, you have the utility derived by the customer. It will be in the form of customer productivity. The customer may become more productive because of the use of your product. It could be simplicity in the use of the product, convenience, risk, fun and image related utility, and then environmental impact. Customers may value the fact that this product reduces environmental impact. What you see in this screen is actually 36 blank squares. Now, how do you use this particular map? What you do is that you look at each of those 36 squares and look at what can your company do in each of them. Maybe your company is already doing something in each of these squares. If so, you could write that down. Then you can look at what does a competitor do in each of these squares. and maybe you can write that down also. You would typically find that only a few squares get filled up, because it's very impossible for company to do something in all the 36 squares shown here. So maybe let's say about 10 or 12 squares are filled up by what you do, and maybe a few other squares are filled up by what your competitors are doing. Then the squares which are overloaded, which means that you are doing something, your competitors are also doing something in that particular space, those would be called red squares. That are squares which are overloaded, and there is very little that can be done to show superiority over your competitors. But then there are what are called blue squares, which are squares which are completely empty. Neither you are doing anything there, nor are your competitors doing anything there. That becomes the space where you can initiate some new activity, see if you can provide that particular utility at that particular stage, and you might have an advantage over your competitors. So basically what this does is that it opens up opportunities for you to look at new spaces where you can compete, rather than competing in the same space that your competitors are competing in. So generating ideas from the buyer utility map is an important way of doing it. There is another possible way of generating ideas, which is coming from looking at product frustrations. What are the different types of product frustrations that can come up when a product is used? If you can understand that frustration, then you may be able to remove that frustration and therefore come up with a superior product. Now what you have here is a list of some of the product frustrations faced by users. This was done actually as a class exercise. We asked students to identify some product where they had a problem, and then come to class and talk about what was the nature of that problem that they faced. And this is a collation of all those problems that were listed by the students. So first one is the target user did not know how to use the product. So while the person was a target user, they had no clue on how the product should actually be used. Second, the target user knows how to use the product but is unable to actually use the product. So while the knowledge is there that this is how it should be used, when they try to use it, they find that they are unable to use it. So obviously it causes frustration. The third is the target user is able to actually use the product but finds it very difficult to use the product. For example, if you have a pen which you can use but it doesn't write properly, it's creating a difficulty for you to use the product, or maybe you need to put in more strength and more force on the paper to write with that particular pen. Then the next one is it is irritating for the customer to use the product. The irritation may come because it doesn't work as it's supposed to. It may be an irritation caused by a sound which is coming from the device. There are all types of irritations that may happen when the customer is trying to use the product. Next is the user is unable to use the product as it is designed. So while the designer may have designed the product in a certain way, the customer finds that as per the instructions, they are not able to use the product. And finally, product may be inadequate to meet the user needs. Now you see in this list, and of course I will show you some more after this, but in this list what you can find is that it is largely to do with the user. The user is unable to use the product the way it is supposed to be used. Maybe the company has not been able to address this specific user's requirement in the way that they have addressed other user requirements. Then the other type of frustration that may come is actually the fault of the designer of the product itself. So for example, the product has inappropriate design for the user. Maybe the design is such that it is not functional or effective for the user. The product does not last as long as it is expected to last. That's another type of frustration. The product affects other products when it is used. You might have heard of products affecting other products through the sound or through the electrical disturbances. The product may affect other products. Products may affect associated products when used. For example, the associated product given with the product, let's say a charger which is given with a phone, the charger is not okay. The charger gets ruined because it is of poor quality, And then you have the product which is inappropriate in terms of size or shape. So it is not easy to pack, it is not in the right proportion, and therefore the customer finds it difficult to use the product because of the inappropriate size or shape of the product. Then the next is it does not suit the customer's application. So the customer wants a particular thing to be done with that product, but it doesn't work for that customer in the way that they intended it to work. And finally, there may be issues relating to the product not catering to the user's special needs. Now, some of this is, you can clearly see, is related to the company not giving a good product. Some of it may be related to the user not being able to use the product as appropriate, and sometimes the product may just not be appropriate for the user's special needs, which may be different from the norm in that target user category. The third way of generating ideas is from lead users. Who are lead users? The lead users are actually those who experience the needs well ahead of the market. The lead users can experiment to meet those needs. So, a lead user is somebody who is using the product a lot, maybe for professional purposes, and they face problems with the product much ahead of the casual users of the same product in the market, and therefore the lead users have an incentive to see if they can experiment to meet those needs which the company has not provided in the original product. There are different types of lead users. The first is the lead user in the target application area. They actually experiment on the target product and see if they can improve on the product. Second is the lead user in an analogous market with very similar applications as the target product. Here, the lead user is not making use of the same product that you are trying to sell. It is working in a different market altogether, but it is very similar. There is a lot of parallel with your current product, and therefore their user experience may be valuable for improving on your product. The third is lead users that specialize in the problem areas of the target product. So, we will take an example of this. Let us look at a lead user for a pair of scissors. Obviously, the lead user who are in the target application area for scissors are barbers and tailors, and these are people who use scissors throughout the day, either for cutting hair or for cutting cloth, therefore have a strong incentive to improve the product to suit their requirements. For example, barbers may face pain in the fingers when they use the scissors the whole day. Similarly, tailors may have problems because cutting cloth is not easy with scissors, so they may have developed a particular technique for cutting cloth more easily using scissors. So therefore, both barbers and tailors can give you some ideas on how to improve the ergonomics of the product and make it much more suitable for a common user. So you might have noticed that in a pair of scissors, one of the ears of the scissor, as it is called, is larger than the other. That is actually to give a better hold for the user so that they can use the scissor much more comfortably, and that would have come from insights from the lead users who are in the target application area, which are barbers and tailors. But let us look at the lead users in an analogous market with a very similar application as the target product, which is scissors. So look at hedge cutters. Hedge cutters are like scissors, but they are very large and they are used for cutting the hedge, and you can see that in a hedge cutter there is a small notch which is used to cut stems. The reason why that notch is given is that if you try to cut a stem with a hedge cutter which does not have a notch, then the branch will actually slide across the blade and not be easily cut. So the notch is used to cut the stem much more effectively. Now, if you borrow that idea and put it in scissors, then it can be a useful addition for scissors. It can allow the scissors to be used for cutting pipes and wires and stuff like that, where the shape of the product is round and still it has to be cut with scissors, which may not be easy to cut with ordinary scissors. The third type of lead user are those who specialize in the problem areas of the target product. In this case, the problem area would be the sharpness of the scissor. So you can look at book cutting blades which are used by the publishing industry. They need to have a blade which is very sharp and which can cut through multiple layers of paper without breaking down or without creating distortion on the cut edge. How do they keep the blade sharp? That's the question that you may want to ask lead users from that area, because they are specialized in the problem areas of the target product. And if you can get some good ideas from them about how they keep the blades sharp over a longer lifetime of the product, you may be able to get ideas on how to keep a scissor sharp for over a fairly long period of time. How do you build a superior user experience? This chart which you see here depicts what is called the Peter-Morville honeycomb, which shows you all the different dimensions which can be used to improve the user experience. You see out there that in the center you have what is called valuable, and all the ones which are surrounding it are the ways in which you can build a superior user experience. So what do these terms mean? Useful means that are the products and systems useful? Usable means, is it a usable product? Is it easy to use? Ease of use is very necessary. Third is desirable. What is the value of the image, the identity, the brand that you have created? Does it make the product desirable from the point of view of the user? Fourth is findable. Can users find what they want? Is it easy to search and identify, for example, the features that you are trying to offer through the product? Is it easy to find those features? The next is accessibility. Is it accessible to people with disabilities? That's a primary concern. But it is also important to look at accessibility to people who may not have a disability but may be finding it difficult to identify the specific things that they want to actually use. Finally, we look at credibility. Do users trust and believe that what you are offering is actually what is there in the product? Is your communication to the customer credible, is the question. If you do all of these, then it becomes valuable. So does all of the above factors deliver value to the users and also to all the other stakeholders involved in the product? So what you can see here is that ideas can come from lead users who will provide you some insights which a common user cannot provide. But what you do with those insights that you get, you can use them to improve on the basic product that you are trying to build. But at the same time, it is important to understand what is the limitation of using lead users. For example, the lead user may make a specification which may not be applicable for the common user. Identifying lead users is obviously very difficult. It is easy to identify those who are of the first category, but it needs a more expansive search process to identify lead users of the second and third category. Lead users in the target application area may become early adopters of the new product. Lead users in analogous markets are not likely to become early adopters of the new product. They may be able to use the ideas which are depicted in your product to improve the product in their product category. Lead user research should obviously be complemented by traditional market research, which is based on large samples. This is because the common user may not want all the things that a lead user may want to incorporate in the product, but the best ideas from lead users can definitely help in generating better ideas for the common user. So here you can see two examples of scissors which have been developed using lead user information. So here you see a scissor which is used for cutting vegetables, and the idea is to have multiple blades which can cut vegetables with more uniformity. So the lead user may have said that when I cut vegetables using scissors, I find that it gets cut in ununiform sizes, and this is one of the ways by which you can get more uniformity in the cutting of these vegetables. The next example you can see on the screen is of a laser pointer mounted on a scissor which is used by tailors. The idea here is that the laser pointer puts a line on the cloth which is used as a basis for cutting in a straight line without the use of a chalk which is used by most tailors to mark on the cloth. The difficulty that the tailor would face is that when you put a chalk line, the chalk gets spread on the cloth and may come in the front of the cloth when finally stitched. So if you can avoid using the chalk, you are better off, and this is an innovation which a lead user input would have created for improving the use of a scissor for tailors. Now of course you can see here that the lead user is benefiting directly from this innovation, but then some of these innovations can be useful for those who are using it in other applications which may not be the same as the lead user application. In this module, we look at how do you do market research for new product development. There can be various sources for user information for new products. First is of course the lead user research that I talked about earlier. Lead user research is used if the experience of the user is very rich. We can also observe users when they work with the product. This works very well when the user experience is low and they cannot articulate their experience very well. For example, if the users are kids, then observing users using the product is a better source for understanding user needs. The third is quality function deployment, which I will cover in more detail later. This covers more users and works very well with users who have moderate user experience. Idea competitions is another source for new product ideas and understanding user requirements. This covers even more users. It works very well with low levels of user experience. And finally, crowdsourcing of ideas covers most users. It works well when the user experience is far more varied. Market research for new products is not the same as market research for existing products. It's different because what you need to understand is what is wrong with the existing product and what needs to be fixed, rather than what is right and what works with most customers. So customer surveys are typically very expensive, hence we have to optimize on the user contact. This research is different, as I explained earlier, from the research done for marketing and sales of existing products. Large sample customer surveys are not required for researching new products, as the focus of the market research is to identify what's missing in the current products but is desired by the customers. So a careful choice of a few users and non-users can help identify the missing and latent needs of the users. Research indicates that just a limited number of as low as 30 is enough to identify 90 to 95% of the needs of users. So if you do a survey of just 30 people carefully chosen, it can be sufficient. Interviews will typically reach saturation once all the major needs are identified by the researcher. So it's not a question of numbers. Once you reach 30 interviews, you would have covered most of the needs of users, even if a particular need is mentioned by only one user. Questions which are asked in such research cover only 4 areas. One is, what are the typical uses of the product? What does the user like about the current product? What do they dislike about it? And what are their suggestions for the use of the product? You can go back to some of the interested ones in your first survey with the prototype that you have developed to get some feedback on the prototype. Also, interactions between users using focus groups may reveal insights that the interviews may not actually reveal. The Kano's method of understanding user preferences is a very useful tool for making sense of all the user needs. Actually, all identified user needs are not the same. They don't have the same character. So What Kano did was that he classified preferences into 5 different types to show what really matters to users and in what way. The first is what is called a must-have attribute. It is essential to include a must-have attribute, otherwise the customer may reject the product altogether. The second is what is called an attractive attribute. It is an unexpected attribute and it can be charged at a premium, but not all common users may not necessarily ask for that particular attribute because it's not required by everyone. The third is what is known as a one-dimensional attribute. What happens here is that there may be a certain attribute which is required at a minimal level by most customers, but some customers will be willing to pay more if that attribute is offered with a greater volume or greater capacity. For example, if you look at hard disk capacity, somebody may pay a certain price for the minimum size hard disk, but some others may be willing to pay more for a hard disk which has higher capacity. The fourth attribute is what is known as indifferent. An indifferent attribute has no impact on the user. The user will not pay for it and they don't care whether it is there or not. Obviously, an indifferent attribute is something that you may not want to include in your product. The last is a reverse attribute. A reverse attribute has a negative impact on the customer. For example, some customers may reject products which have a certain color because they don't like it. A negative attribute or a reverse attribute will lead to rejection by users, and obviously this should not be included in the product. So how do these attributes shape up? This diagram actually shows how customer satisfaction is affected by each of these attributes. So for example, if you look at attractive attributes, there is no dissatisfaction if it is not there, but the satisfaction goes higher if an attractive attribute is provided. On the other hand, if it's a must-have attribute, then there is dissatisfaction because the attribute is not there and it may lead, as I said, to rejection of the product. But if it is there, it doesn't necessarily lead to more satisfaction. It is considered as a minimum requirement and must be provided. On the other hand, the third one, the one-dimensional attribute, if it is lower than what is expected by customers, then the satisfaction is low. For example, as I mentioned, if the hard disk capacity is too low, customers may reject the product saying that it's not good enough. But if there is higher capacity, then the customer will buy it only if they need it, and therefore you can offer different configurations with different capacity so that customers can choose which capacity they are actually looking for and which capacity they are willing to pay for. So this is the one-dimensional attribute where the customer satisfaction goes up if it is fully implemented, but of course it depends on how much the customer is willing to pay. How do you use Kano's model for user preferences? What you can use the Kano model for is to prioritize and make features more clearer. This is how you can use it for making product decisions. First, you need to meet the minimum requirements for all of the must-have attributes that you have identified. Then, second, you can add value with the one-dimensional attributes and create more configurations. The third is to infuse a few attractive attributes to really enhance the experience and then to charge the premium for those attributes. However, the fourth thing is very important: do not invest in indifferent attributes or reverse attributes. Next, we have what is called the house of quality, which essentially uses the combination of customer needs with technical specifications. So this diagram, it looks like a house, and it is actually showing all the information about the product that has been collected from the customers through your customer survey, as well as what are the technical specifications which are important to fix so that you create a configuration that works for your customers. So on the left hand side, you have customer needs and benefits listed down. These are from the market research that you have done. Then on the top, you have technical responses, or what are known as technical specifications, which are required to be fixed in such a way that they meet customer needs. So, they are on the top. In between, you have the relationship between the customer needs and the technical specifications. At the top of the house, the triangle that you can see at the top, which is called the roof of the house of quality, that is where you have technical correlations between the different technical specifications. So, for example, two technical specifications may interact with each other in positive or negative ways. That would be mentioned in the correlation matrix at the top. On the right hand side, you have what is called the planning matrix. The planning matrix actually allows you to look at each of the customer needs and compare it with your competitors' products and see where do you stand with respect to your competitor products. So, it is like a benchmark on the user needs that you are fulfilling, to what extent are you doing it, and to what extent are competitors doing a better job. On the bottom of the house of quality, you have the technical specifications and comparison of technical parameters with your competitors' products. So, for example, a particular competitor may be superior on a particular technical specification. That information gets mentioned here. As you can see from the house of quality diagram, a lot of information is collated together in one compact piece. So, you have the user needs covered, you have the technical specifications covered, you have competitor data on how they are meeting technical specifications, you have competitor data on how they are meeting user specifications or user requirements, and then you also have data on what are the technical correlations between different technical specifications, and the relationship between the user needs and the technical specifications are also adequately covered. So, in one diagram you have all the information that is required by product designers to design a much better product than the existing product. So, this is the essence of the house of quality. It is used by designers to understand the product requirements and the competitive requirements and come up with a much better product based on that information. How does QFD help in the product development process? You can see two lines shown here in this diagram. The number of design changes actually will be higher if you are using conventional wisdom, that is without any QFD. So, what happens in this case is that because you have not done the QFD effort, you are likely to make a lot of design changes, and those design changes will happen later and later in the product development cycle because you did not realize those requirements early enough. Okay. And as that happens, the late design changes will cost more and more money because a lot of things have already been confirmed and frozen, and making changes at a later stage means that costs have to be incurred. However, with the use of QFD, the design changes happen much earlier in the cycle, and therefore, at a later stage there are very few design changes required, and the design changes may actually go down to zero towards the production stage. So, overall what it does is that QFD improves the product quality and also reduces the cost of making late design changes, and late design changes actually cost a lot more than early design changes. So, what are the overall benefits of QFD? First is of course increased customer satisfaction. Because you have used the QFD process and you have identified customer needs early, and you have identified how to benchmark it very effectively with competitors, it leads to enhanced quality of the new product. It also leads to the new product being less costly to make. The new product is delivered on schedule because you are making less design changes, and the new product is exactly what the customers wanted. So, overall there is increased customer satisfaction from the QFD process. There is also an improvement in the development cycle. Overall, having QFD reduces the cycle time and leads to a shorter development cycle. It also results in earlier resolution of design changes and minimizes the startup difficulties that are faced by companies when a new product is launched. Moreover, there is better internal knowledge transfer through the QFD process. As I explained earlier, the QFD diagram actually contains a lot of knowledge, and this knowledge is preserved in a very compact form that is well understood by all parties concerned. So, for example, the marketing people can see their representation of user needs there. The product designers can see how the technical specifications interact with user needs. The people who are involved in production can see what are the interactions between the different technical needs. So, all the trade-offs are very clear and well marked out in the QFD diagram. So, trade-offs become very clear. Reworking on any product features becomes much easier because you can see the impact of each trade-off in the QFD diagram itself. Overall, what it does is that it helps you do visual thinking, and all the entire team members are involved in the visual thinking with the QFD diagram. The QFD therefore gives teams a common language to discuss their concerns, and cross-functional team building will happen as a consequence of using the QFD. However, QFD process, as you can see, is fairly complex. It is very appropriate for complex products, but may be an overkill for very simple products. The other way users to get products which they are interested in is to let users design their own products. This involves what is known as toolkits. Toolkits enable users to experiment with the product features in relation to their specific needs and to customize their own product for themselves. User toolkits are an effective response to the difficulty in assessing user needs accurately. It also is a good response to highly heterogeneous demand in the product category, which is very difficult to meet very directly. Higher customization is often desired by users and can be provided by the company using toolkits. So, how does a toolkit work? Basically, a toolkit enables users to customize the product as per their tastes and preferences. They actually encourage users to experiment with their requirements and discover new configurations which may be ignored by the firm. Once the user has designed a toolkit based prototype for themselves, the firm takes over and can deliver the product as per the prototype. The toolkit approach has been found to have scope in a wide range of industries. For example, airlines allow users to search an itinerary within the customer's timeline and budget. Insurance companies have provided spreadsheets to users which can help them craft their own insurance product. Integrated circuit designers enable buyers to build a simulated circuit for the developers to then design and work on. Fashion designers provide a toolkit of accessory patterns for users to combine in using their product. Jewelers have provided a video wall for women to try a range of jewelry on their image on the screen. Hairstylists also do something very similar. They allow customers to experiment on the screen image to find the hairstyles that they like. Fast food products have allowed customers to save by combining multiple items by using a code. By using this code, they actually have a faster queue process, and the customer also saves some money by going for a combination rather than buying individual items. Websites also allow users to customize the news topics that they want and the advertisements that they prefer to see. This allows customers to be targeted much better by the advertisers on the website. Companies provide processed ingredients for chefs to experiment with for creating new dishes. So, you can see all these examples basically using a toolkit and can generate ideas which save costs and improve the choices available for customers. So, what is the requirement of an effective toolkit? It should enable users to make complete cycles of trial and error learning within the toolkit. It should provide adequate solution space within the toolkit to cover all the high potential designs that the customers may want. Toolkits are user friendly, they should be user friendly. Users can use their own design language and simple design skills to design the product of their liking. Toolkits must also contain an adequate library of commonly used modules for its users. For example, if it's a travel website, it should have a calendar feature that enables you to check which date is which day of the week and whether the timings are right or not. So, all these features help the user not make mistakes while designing the product for themselves. Toolkits are also such that user designs are easily translated without making any minor revisions. As you can understand, if the company makes revisions on the design that the user has developed, then there will be dissonance for the user. So, what is the value of an effective user toolkit? An effective user toolkit can create a distinctive competitive advantage that is harder for others to copy. Of course, toolkits can be replicated, but if you have done the toolkit first, it may give you some advantage over those who do it later. The trial and error cycles done by the user and not by the developer, therefore it cuts down on the development time for the product to be delivered. Toolkits can also revolutionize an industry by drastic cost reductions while offering high variety. Being the first in using toolkits can help companies remain ahead of the competition through the learning that can come from the toolkit. It is also a good way to learn about user trends in the market. How do you evaluate an innovation idea? There are different methods which are used for evaluation. The first is of course scoring and screening of product concepts. You can have a scoring scheme and screen all the product concepts that meet the scoring that you have pre-decided. You can have concept testing using trials and market research. You can evaluate the risk payoff matrix at each stage in the product development process. You can also evaluate the early prototypes with real users. You can get the real users to check the prototype and identify any flaws with it or any problems with it. You can also evaluate the real options along each pathway in the product development process. You can check on the cost benefit of delaying some decisions and seeing what will be the impact of delaying some decisions where there is a certain amount of uncertainty. Finally, you can use the ATAR model, which I will explain more, to figure out whether there is sufficient demand for the product that you are trying to develop. So, the ATAR model essentially looks at awareness, trial, availability and repeat purchase as a way to determine whether there is sufficient demand for the product. So, awareness is based on the advertising of the product. What is the advertising of the product that you are doing so that you can raise awareness about the product. The second is the trial. It is based on purchase trials, not free trials. How many people have actually tried out the product and how many have actually bought it to try out the product. The third is availability in the target market by the distribution that you have created for the product. Is it available in a lot of stores or available only in a few stores? The fourth is how much of repeat purchase happens. How many people make a second purchase after the trial purchase, or in the case of big ticket purchases, is the customer repeating, probably cannot repeat the purchase, but they can recommend the purchase to any friend of theirs who may be considering making the same type of product purchase. So, the adoption of a new model or a new product comes from the multiplication of A, T, A and R, and this gives you a sense of how much demand may be there for the product. Of course, all of these are assumptions and many of them may be off mark. You have to carefully cross check and make sure that these assumptions and estimates are reasonable. And of course, once you have done this and you have got real results, you can revise and repeat the formula for the next time period. In this module, we look at product architecture, design for manufacturing and prototyping. What is product architecture? It is the structure found within the product. Modular architecture is the structure found in desktop computers. In a desktop computer, every part is a module which is independent and can be easily taken out and replaced by another component which is identical and compatible. What does modular architecture do in terms of improving the product structure? Essentially, it allows for standard components, easy upgrades, easy add-ons, replacements, reuse of existing components, and flexibility in terms of enhancing and improving on the product after it has been purchased by customers. It enables customizing the product for each user. It allows for providing greater product variety. It also allows for isolation of all the wear and tear parts within the product. So, modular architecture optimizes flexibility over performance, not the technical performance, but more the form factor of the product. And in contrast, you have what is called integral product architecture, which is found, for example, in laptops and tablets. Laptops and tablets are very compact products, and a lot of components are made in such a way that they cannot be easily replaced. You have to replace a whole module rather than each component. What does an integral architecture do? It optimizes on the desired performance, in this case the form factor of the product, over the flexibility and the ability to upgrade components within the product. So, integral architecture minimizes the form, size and volume of the product. It uses multiple functionality from a single part. It allows for limited pre-designed product variety. You cannot have too much of product variety using integral architecture. It limits the post-purchase change, repair and upgrades that are possible with a modular architecture. And it also limits the use of standard components. So, you cannot easily switch components from one laptop to another laptop because the construction of the laptops are very different. But it is easy to do that in the case of a desktop because there are slots there and those slots are identical across a wide variety of desktops. So, essentially an integral architecture gives high quality or robustness to the product, but lowers the flexibility available to the user to upgrade and improve on the product after they have bought it. So, once they buy an integral architecture product, they are stuck with it. There is very little you can change about the product. What sort of modularity exists? There are 6 types of modularity as you can see in this diagram, and I will explain each of these types of modularity in more detail going forward. The first is what is known as component sharing modularity, where you use an identical component, for example chips, across multiple products. So, you have developed a particular component which can be used in multiple products, that is component sharing modularity. Component swapping modularity basically means using the same socket, for example the electric socket, across multiple products. The third is what is known as cut to fit modularity, where you use a base material to lengthen sections. For example, in electric wiring covers, you can cut a piece and fit it into the particular slot that has been created. Depending on the length of the wiring to be covered, you can cut the base material to cover that particular length. The fourth is mixed modularity, that is mixing of materials. For example, in the case of paints, you can mix 2 colors and create a different color, that is called mixed modularity. The fifth is bus modularity. Basically, it uses the same base plate, for example, an electronic circuit board, for fixing multiple components. That is bus modularity. And the last is sectional modularity. This is what you find in toy construction kits. Different components can fit together with each other because they have been created in such a way that they fit each other. That is sectional modularity. What is design for manufacturing? Basically, it is how do you design a product in such a way that it enables easy manufacturing and low cost manufacturing. Some of the techniques which are used in design for manufacturing are: first, minimizing the number of parts in a product, using common parts across many products, eliminating fasteners in the products to cut down on the assembly time, eliminating using jigs and fixtures during assembly, eliminating the adjustments which are required to be made during the assembly, eliminating errors during assembly by design, for example by color coding. All these techniques actually reduce the cost of manufacturing and thereby make the product cheaper to manufacture, thus opening up more markets for the company. how else can you improve in terms of design for manufacturing? You can also consider customer assembly wherever possible. If the customer assembles your product, for example, what IKEA allows you to do is to buy a box with all the components and then assemble it yourself. If the customer does the assembly, the cost is reduced for them because the company doesn't have to assemble the product and transport it in an assembled form. You can also minimize the system complexity to allow for easy assembly. You can isolate the parts that require frequent replacements. So, for example, if a part is going to wear out, you can place it in such a way that the customer can easily take it out and replace it rather than bringing it back to the factory for a formal replacement by the company itself. You can choose modular architecture in all the parts that require repair, upgrade and replacements. You can choose integral architecture to reduce the cost and improve on the desired performance parameters. Through design for manufacturing, you can make choices of both modular architecture as well as integral architecture to give a combination that is more effective for that product. Swatch provides an example of how it is done. Swatch was actually a response to the Japanese quartz watches which were flooding the market at very low prices. The Swatch was the first to use integral architecture in watches. Till then, the watches were made using modular architecture where there was a mechanism which was mass manufactured and then put into the case which the company would make. Swatch was the first to use an integral architecture structure where everything was, all the components were mounted on a base plate inside the watch itself and not as a separate module. There was a drastic reduction of parts which gave it higher reliability. They also lowered costs by using a lot of new rugged quality materials. They also lowered costs by using a fully automated assembly system. And the watch was finally sealed. It cannot be repaired at all. By choosing an integral architecture, they created a product which was very compact, very efficiently manufactured and very high on reliability. But on the outside of the watch, they use modular dials to provide very high variety. So, they were able to bring out more than 200 or 300 designs in the initial year itself by providing more variety on the face of the watch, whereas the inside of the watch was identical across all these products. They also sold the watches at lower prices, which made it a very good value buy for potential users. So, even though the Swiss business was on the high cost, costly mechanical watches, they were able to capture some part of the low priced category, but by giving a product that is superior in quality, they were able to retain the image of being a high quality manufacturer. Shimano is another case where this combination of integral and modular architecture can be used to revolutionize an industry. The bicycle component industry was actually a fragmented industry. Different companies would make different components and they would expect that users would buy different components based on the quality of those components and combine them into their bicycle's gear system. Shimano was the one which introduced what is called a click shift gear changing system, which was actually a combination of multiple components. They also integrated the click shift system into an optimized set with the rail, crank and brakes also integrated into one compact kit which the manufacturer could buy. What they realized was that the user needs on gears were far more homogeneous than they were thought by manufacturers. Users accepted the option of an optimized set instead of going for individual components bought from different manufacturers, which could be a suboptimal set. The brand recognition, they had branding on the handle of the bicycle. This actually also enabled them to get more visibility, along with the higher quality, made Shimano the dominant gear design in this market. By 1997, Shimano had 86 to 98% market share in different markets in the area of gears. They did so by integrating a more fragmented industry into creating a kit which was far more effective from the user's point of view. What are prototypes? Essentially, prototypes are product approximations which are used for testing, learning, communication, and integration of different components. The use of prototypes actually reduces time, costs, and risk. Prototypes may be expensive to make, but actually they reduce the time and the cost and the risk involved in the entire product development process. Prototypes are also used as funding milestones in product development or as demonstrations of interim successes. Analytical prototypes are one type of prototype. These are computer models which are flexible and enable non-destructive testing. A physical prototype can help detect unanticipated issues that are not found in computer prototypes. The use of prototypes. In breakthrough products, the prototypes are used to show feasibility of the new product idea that you are trying to implement. In derivative products, the prototypes are used for problem detection. In platform products, they are used to plan the product releases. Multiple prototypes can be used in more complex product development projects, but it's important that prototypes are planned in such a way that they are effectively used and you can combine the learnings from different types of prototypes. Appropriate use of prototype cycles is essential. Prototypes should be spaced out in such a way that the learning from each prototype is used for the next prototype. Prototypes can also face evaluation by target users who can point out flaws that the team members of the product development team are blind to. Prototyping strategy is finding the fit between the product development process adopted by the firm and the prototyping method which is used. For example, a prototyping strategy issue is, should I make the prototype internally using my own people, or should I get the vendor who usually does manufacturing for me to also make the prototype? There are different pros and cons of this. If you make the prototype in-house, it allows for greater secrecy on the new product, but the workers who are working on the prototype are typically highly skilled people. In fact, the most skilled people are typically made to switch to the prototype workshop. However, once the prototype is done, it is not easily transferred to production, which is done by lesser skilled workers. On the other hand, if you make the prototype through vendors, it allows for earlier detection of production problems. As they make the prototype, the vendor learns how to manufacture the product and can get into the manufacturing mode much faster than if they were dumped the product at a later stage. In this module, we look at how do you organize yourself for a product development project. There are several questions that are needed to decide on a new product development organization structure. The first question is, which department has to take a lead role? This depends on the emphasis that is being made on the product and the degree of change and where the change is going to happen. The second question is, how much of interdepartmental integration is required for that product? The higher the integration required, which is typical in more complex products, then you have to get more people involved and the structure may become more complex. Third question is there a need for good communication and high levels of collaboration across the firm? This again becomes a requirement in complex long gestation projects, and the product development structure is also required to be changed to match with this requirement. So what are the different types of structures which are used? That depends on how much of co-location happens. Can you co-locate people of different specializations so that they can interact much better? Can you move people across departments over time so that they understand the issues involved in different departments? Can you create occasions for joint decisions across the departments, especially on the stage gates decision points? Can you create informal meeting and gathering places for exchange and validation of new product ideas? Can you create incentives and rewards across departments for support on unusual tasks involved in the projects? But the last and most important one is, what is the team structure that you have created which is effective for a specific type of new product development project? So first type of team structure that is created which is effective is what is called the functional NPD structure. In this structure, the new product moves from one functional department to the next till it is completed. For example, a foundry making casting items, if a new design comes to the foundry, it goes to the blueprint department, and from the blueprint department it will move to various departments till the actual casting is done. But each department doesn't have to interact or collaborate much with each other. They know what is to be done, and once they do it, they can pass it on to the next department. This type of product development is suitable for customized product development projects, where the changes are very minor and can be done by one department without reference to other departments. Then this type of structure works very well. It is good for functional specialization projects, but it usually suffers from coordination issues, and the time taken to complete the project may be long depending on which particular department has a bottleneck. Also, no one may take full ownership of any project in a functional NPD structure. On the other hand, in complete contrast to this is what is known as the product NPD structure. In this mode, the entire team focuses exclusively on the new product activity till it is finally launched. That means everybody is involved 100% on a particular product till it is launched. For example, in a startup, everybody is involved in entering the market with a new product, and therefore they follow what is called the product NPD structure. It's suitable for breakthrough projects and startups. It is okay for low functional specialization projects. Overall, a project NPD structure shortens the time taken and enables better coordination, but the dedicated team's expertise is not available to other projects elsewhere in the company. The middle ground is what is known as the matrix NPD structure. A matrix structure involves dual reporting, as is known as the name of the matrix structure indicates. So you have dual reporting, one to a functional manager on the regular tasks which are typically not related to new products, and also to product managers on all new product activities. This type of a structure is suitable for complex and long gestation projects. For example, in the automobile industry, it may take 2 to 3 years to develop a new car. In the aerospace industry, it may take almost a decade to develop a completely new product. The new product projects may stretch over several years, and experts within the company like industrial designers are available for multiple new product projects in the matrix mode. So they may report to a functional manager for regular tasks, and they may report to multiple project managers on new product projects. There are two versions of the new product development structure, which is the matrix structure. One is known as the heavyweight project organization structure, where there is high discretionary power given to the project managers, and the project manager is typically powered over the functional heads. So when there is a conflict on the resource, the functional head has to bow down before the project manager's requirements. On the other hand, if you have a lightweight project organization, then the project manager's role is purely coordination, and the project manager is less powerful than the functional head in the organization. Matching the structure, the organization structure, to project types is very critical in enabling projects to happen better. So for example, if the project involves radical and breakthrough requirements, then the project NPD structure is the most suitable option. If the project requires deep technical expertise, then the functional structure is more appropriate. However, if it is in somewhere in between, if you need a system solution or a new platform project, then the heavyweight project manager with a heavyweight matrix structure is more appropriate. And if it's a derivative project where there is enhancement only being done, then a lightweight matrix structure with a lightweight project manager is more suitable. Of course, matching these structures is important, but there are companies where the matching is not done. Some companies have a dominant NPD structure and they stick to one type of structure for all types of projects. They may not switch to a better option if available. It is often difficult for companies to move from a functional structure to a project structure or a matrix structure. Also, it is important that the team is led by the functional area that has a large or critical role in the product improvement that is being attempted. For example, the R&D should lead for technology dominant projects and design should lead for ergonomics and aesthetics related projects. How do you achieve what is called product integrity? Essentially, product integrity is a high level of consistency which creates a differentiated product that is appreciated by customers. You need to organize yourself in such a way that you can achieve product integrity, and organizing itself is the key to successful new product differentiation. So, product integrity is actually the total balance of product features that create an instant appeal for the customers. The feel of fit, or for example, a statement like it's just right or they just got it right. Product integrity is consistency of all aspects of the firm's relationship with its target customers. Integrity is far more subtle. It is the harmony of the product or service with users and their lifestyle. So, how do you achieve product integrity? It's not just a functionality issue or performance issue. It is much broader than just functionality and performance. Organizations that create products with integrity also seem to reflect that integrity within the organization itself. They have a seamless pattern of organizing. Their efforts are coherent with the organization's strategy. Such organizations have clarity on what to do and what not to do across all its hierarchical levels. They also have clarity on the basis of the choice of new products and the new customers that they will target. So, what is the nature of product integrity? It can contain two different aspects. One is internal integrity, which is the consistency between the function and structure of the product or service. All the parts within the product fit smoothly, the components and layouts match, all the parts work very well together. That is internal integrity. External integrity is the fit between the product performance and the user expectations, the objectives of the users, their values, their lifestyles, and so on. Product integrity is very much part of leadership, and effective leadership has a key role in developing and achieving high levels of product integrity. Effective leaders can help their product development team to focus on meeting and sometimes exceeding the target users' expectations for new products. A heavyweight project manager on a major long gestation project acts as a catalyzing force for achieving product integrity in the new products that they monitor. Project leaders help create powerful product concepts, the soul of the product, and infuse it into all the fine details of the development that is being undertaken. Product concepts effectively communicated will help the project to draw more effectively on both internal and external resource persons for creating a better product. Effective leaders also seem to instinctively know when they got it right, and they typically do not tinker with a product that is already right. In this module, we look at developing services and product service systems. We'll first look at developing pure services. Pure services are usually harder to develop and sell due to their inherent intangibility. Clients of services are usually skeptical and unsure about the good results for them. Productizing a pure service, making it more like a product, can make it easier to purchase. Productized services are more tangible to the user. It also makes them easier to budget. It also lowers the risk of cost overruns or poor results for the buyer. How do you productize a pure service? Productizing pure services. Productizing pure services allows sellers to reduce their cost by templating their service. How can you productize a pure service? First, you can give the service a descriptive name, define its scope, fix its time frame, and fix a price tag. Second, you can offer customized service packages that may specifically suit many different user groups. Third, you can create interlinked service modules that can be purchased by users with no prior commitment. Product service systems lie in the spectrum between pure products and pure services. Product service systems are a marketable combination of products and services that can serve users better than each can serve alone. Product commoditization can be reduced by adding services to products that differentiate the product from other competing products. Products combined with value-added services can give higher profits than products alone. A product service system can also reduce resource needs and may also reduce resource wastage. A product service system business model shows how organizations create, deliver, and also capture value of a product service system. A product service system business creates value in 4 different ways. First, cost reductions in the utilization of assets. Second, increased value of the product service combination. Third, expansion of customer base by inclusion of more customers. And 4, changes in the competitive environment. I will take you through 3 types of product service systems now. First is product oriented PSS. In this very common system, users are the owners, but the seller firm maintains the product as required on demand. It includes financing schemes to buy the product, maintenance contracts, advice and consultancy on efficient use of the product, supply of required consumables, and buyback offer at the end of life of the product. For example, selling dishwashers, water filters, air purifiers, these are all products where periodic supplies are required and regular maintenance is required, and they are apt products for a product oriented PSS. The second is the use oriented PSS. In this system, the firm is the owner and sells or hires out only the function of the product through sharing, pooling, or leasing, along with maintaining the product over its entire life cycle. The third is a result oriented PSS. In this case, the users pay only for results. The product is replaced by the service. It includes modes like outsourced activity, paying per output unit, and paying for results. Business models can change significantly on moving a product from 1 to 2 or 3. Examples of use-oriented PSS. In these examples, the firm owns the product and hires out its functionality as and when required. For example, a tent service. They will rent out tents for outdoor events. It does not make any sense for a customer to own a tent which can be used only occasionally. Second, bicycle sharing. You can borrow a bicycle whenever you need it without necessarily owning it. Tool libraries are where customers may pool their tools and borrow whenever required. Maternity clothes library is where you can donate maternity clothes and others can use it when they require it. Basically, the use can be in a self-service mode or in a delivered service mode. It saves the customer the investments required to be made in less frequently used products such as tools. Examples of result-oriented PSS. In these examples, the product has been replaced by a service such that there is no ownership for the user and also no hiring of the product by the user. For example, a phone voicemail has replaced the answering machines which were used earlier. Now you do not need to buy an answering machine, you just need the service of a voicemail. PeerFlix is a company which allowed customers to exchange their DVDs. You can ask for a DVD which you want to see and send out one which you have already seen. Cat cafes, which exist in Japan, are another example of a result-oriented PSS. You can enjoy being in the company of cats in a cafe if you cannot afford to own a pet cat and maintain it. Users basically avoid owning the product and just pay for the service. Platform thinking for developing services. Product platforms are service subsystems that can be leveraged to offer high service variety. Platforms have common architecture spanning multiple services that are implemented with common subsystems and subsystem interfaces. Robust product platforms can be extended to address the markets with new business models. Platforms hold important capabilities and key insights and can shape the organization structure also. Super Seva is an example of platform thinking for services. Super Seva is a leading concierge service in Bangalore which offers 87 plus services at low prices. They ask for desk space at the office entrance at all the major Bangalore IT firm offices. For each major service, they use a detailed and error-proof requirement data collection form. They use a robustly defined process at the backend for each activity module, say for example, proof of service being done. Multiple services use the same robust modules at the backend. Multiple services also use the same service tracking infrastructure. This reduces the cost that they incur per new service that they add. Modules have processes that are robust and offer high quality built by failure-based learning over several years. Well-defined modules ensure that adding new services require minimal new process changes. They also offer 11 popular services for free, while the other 76 services have service fees of only about 50 cents per service, a bargain value price in this market. The free services are all online bill payments, with them getting cash in advance and some float for their business. The new competitors cannot offer 87 plus services at the start and all fail in bids against Super Seva. New competitors also cannot offer the low rates that Super Seva offers as their setup costs are high. Competitors cannot refine their service quality at short notice and are unable to imitate them at all. Therefore, Super Seva is effectively a monopoly in its space. So what Super Seva has done is, through platform thinking for services, they have created a service which is a virtual monopoly in its market space. There are two ways to create differentiation. The first is horizontal differentiation and the second is vertical differentiation. In horizontal differentiation, essentially we are looking at customers who differ in tastes and needs. You can identify unserved tastes and needs and select the ones that can be profitably served. In vertical differentiation, you have customers who differ in their willingness to pay. You can identify therefore combinations of features and quality that are not served by your competitors and select the ones that can be profitably served. Examples of creating differentiation. A product category with a very high level of differentiation is the Indian sari worn by women in India. In horizontal differentiation, saris are made in multiple colors and designs to appeal to a wide range of customer tastes and preferences. In vertical differentiation, saris which are in popular patterns are also made with cheaper materials to address the customer's ability to pay. But the new exclusive unique patterns are available only in silk, which is the higher priced product. Creating demand without any latent need. This is a really difficult problem to solve. What can you do when you have created a far superior new product or service and the target customers see no need for it at all? We will draw from the unique experiences of N. Balasubramanian, who is currently the CEO of Shrestha Natural Bioproducts. He did 4 challenging product launches where there was no latent demand for the new product. The first case is of Safal Fruits and Vegetables way back in 1989. The core challenge was to show that buying fruits and vegetables from a supermarket was better than buying it even more fresher from the roadside vendors. Safal bought directly from wholesale markets and did a quality check. They also made weight bundles that made it convenient and cheaper for buyers. They gave price comparisons to convince buyers to buy from them instead of roadside vendors. They also showed how their weighing is more accurate than the roadside vendors. Case 2, this is about Real Good Chicken, which was the next company that he joined. Here, the core challenge was to show that chilled chicken sold by them within a day of processing was better in taste than the freshly bought chicken from the local market. Real Good actually processed birds at the specific age when they were both bulky and tasty. The chilling process and the cold chain preserved the taste better. Real Good initiated trials by giving 2 free eggs with their chicken. Those who tried that for the first time became repeat buyers. Case 3, this is Tropicana juice in 1999. The core challenge was to show that packaged real juice is better than fresh juice bought from roadside vendors or juice drinks that are available and far cheaper. Tropicana gave trials of their real juice drinks to morning joggers to create a healthy habit. They also showed that roadside vendors were unhygienic. Tropicana also had to educate retailers to keep their juice only in the cold product shelves, unlike the juice drinks which are kept in the open. Case 4, Pedigree Pet Food. This was the most challenging one. The core challenge here was to show to pet owners that pet food is far more healthier for the dog's digestive system than table leftovers or tasty to human food. Pedigree first educated the vets on the benefits of pet food so that then informed their owners. Pedigree also sold pet food samples through the vets as food stores did not accept to sell their pet food. Pedigree advertised only when the word of mouth about their product was very high. How do you create demand without latent needs? So, this is what Mr. Balasubramaniam has summarized based on all his experiences. First, do not trust market research. With no latent need, market research is likely to be way off the mark and very unreliable. Directional accuracy or a grudging acceptance of the product is okay as you develop better market understanding. Third, de-risking of possible failure. Initially, it is better to limit the advertising budget and keep the advertising very low key. Fourth, it is important to educate the channel partners and all retail executives on the value of the new product. Fifth, you should use your own retail channel or create unique channels if the existing channels are averse to the new product. Sixth, do not antagonize any potential customers by telling them that what they are doing is wrong. Seventh, try unique promotions, customer trials, giving samples to build interest and word of mouth about the new product. Eighth, experiment and demonstrate the product and directly address any wrong customer perceptions. Ninth, demonstrate the value of the new product with cost comparisons in customer oriented ways. 10th, respond with agility to any complaints. Persevere with customer trials over a much longer time. 11th, communicate internally on the new product plan and inform how negative results will be viewed. Finally, 12th, wait for the tipping point, the point where the market will take off, and only then advertise the product. If you advertise too prematurely, the market may not understand the new product and reject it. How do you choose between new product options? The first is to leverage existing resources and create new value for existing users. That is, you have low cost and low risk in this option, and that's typically the best option. Second, add new resources and create new value for existing user base. Here the cost may go up, but the risk is still low and is a good second option. Third, leverage existing resources and create new value for new users. Here the cost is lower, but the risk is higher, but still it's a good third option. Lastly, add new resources and create new value for new target users. Here both the cost and the risk are high, and therefore this should typically be the last option. You should avoid conflict with existing good products and avoid option 4 before attempting earlier ones.